The Fujicast is an independent loading zone production.
Did you smuggle back into the country any cicadas, Kev? Just to make you feel like each night when you go to sleep, you could just pop one on the mantelpiece just downstairs and let it chirp away so you could hear it in the background and remind you of Spain.
You're not allowed to bring anything back that's useful, alive, food, anything.
The family included?
Family included, yeah. They've left them all there because they were too much alive, yeah. Thanks to friendly old Brexit. Nothing is allowed across.
I think that was always the way, though, Kev. You're not really allowed to bring live things through, regardless of Brexit or whatever. You know,
yeah, maybe live things, but certainly, like you can't bring food, ham, nothing. Yeah, basically,
no cicadas. Then
no cicadas. Definitely no cicadas.
We were stopped actually on our way back from Turkey. Thomas likes to draw on rocks, and we found some really cool white rocks. So he was able to draw on the rocks, and he found one that looked just like the front of a train. So he spent probably days on this thing, painting it with his special rock paints that he has, and it looked like the front of an LNER Class 800 or Class 801 for the real aficionados. He got this rock, he's really proud of it, and then he took it through airport security, and they only went to try and take it away from him.
Yeah.
But I think they saw the look in his eyes, and this very kindly guy relented, and he said, "Oh, go on then," and he put it back in the bag, and we all rushed off. But what was Spain like? Did you enjoy it, Kev?
Yeah, it was great. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Wish I wasn't back. Hate the real world. I'm gonna go and live up a tree with some cats. I've decided that's my future.
Next week, Kev said, I don't know, not next week. You wish it was next week. Next year, I hope you don't mind me mentioning Kev, but Kev said to me, "I'm going there for 6 weeks." That's it.
Yeah.
Could you honestly do 6 weeks around a pool, just you and the cicada?
Yeah, definitely. But it won't be that. It'll my plan next year, hopefully, if fingers crossed and all things go well, is that we'll do a road trip down. So we'll stop in Paris, Barcelona. We'll probably pop across to Africa while we're there.
What?
It's only across the ferry.
I know,
Africa,
it's
Morocco.
like an odyssey.
Yeah. So I think 6, maybe 8 weeks. If I might go a couple of weeks before the kids break up from school.
8 weeks? Well, are you going to do any weddings next year, Kev?
The Fujicast.
Oh, well, Kev, if you make it next year for that length of time, can I come with you in your suitcase? That'd be an amazing adventure for the kids, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it'd be great. Yeah, I really do.
I mean, they learn so much about life.
And I'll be 50 during that trip, so this is the reason why.
What? You're 50 this year?
No.
Next year?
During that trip.
So next year you're 50?
Yeah.
Oh, I had you still down as 45. You're catching up with Daniel Craig, you are. Right, welcome to the Fujicast. It's a brand new season, really. We're here every other week for you, and for those that are patrons, we're here every single week because there's a little bit extra next week that we put out in the Patreon group, which will be of a Monday as well. You and your questions from our electronic mailbag, and of course also through the Fujicast private Facebook group that you're welcome to become a part of. If you'd like to send a mail through, send it to click@fujicast.co.uk. Also on the show today we don't have a book of the week, do we? It's not this could be I don't know. You don't usually use the Z word, but it's a zine of the week.
Well, yeah, you'll call it a zine. I'll call it a luxury pamphlet.
That makes it sound like something you buy a Sunseeker from.
Well, it looks a bit like that. Yes, and this is one that we were sent all the way from Mexico. So we'll chat about that when we get to it.
What is your problem with the word zine, Kev?
Stupid word.
I don't understand why. It's like picking out a word like newspaper and saying, "I don't like that word. It's a stupid word."
Zine, no, it's like togs. I hate, like when people say the word togs, I immediately delete them from my Facebook group of my entire life.
I wonder why I'd gone.
Togs.
I did take a picture of, I was on Oslo, where was I? Oslo, sounded like a proper jet setter, us two. Oslo airport, and they'd put a bus replacement service on for the line that I did intend to take to go up to Lillehammer for a wedding. And it said, hang on, let me find it because I've got a picture of it. I'll send it to you, Kev, you'll like it. It says, bus for Tog. So I assume for Tog means, for those not wanting to take or not able to take the train service today. Seems very short expression for that, but bus. BUSS for tog. They're making us feel very special in Norway. They're laying on buses for togs. But you don't like that phrase either, do you?
No, I'd go back on the plane and come back. In fact, I'm in Norway in a couple of weeks for a wedding also. I think I'm going to be flying to Trondheim. If there's any togs there, that'll be it.
Kev, I'll make sure all signs are removed. Right, let's get to the questions of the show.
Well, before we start, Neil, you use PickTime, don't you?
Yeah, well, you know it. I like to think I was responsible for you using PickTime.
You were indeed. It was you were the one that first showed me PickTime, and I went, "Wow, look at that!"
Yeah,
which was pretty fortuitous actually, because they have come on board as friends of the show and are going to help us for a few months with running the show, which is very, very kind of them.
Absolutely.
Now, what is it about PickTime that you like the most? Go on, tell me.
Well, I'm a very visual person. You know me, Kev. I'm not very tech. I can use interfaces, etc., but I like stuff to look good. I mean, that's why we spend so long making websites, isn't it? We want them to look good. And I never felt that what I used before, it just felt clunky. Well, the moment I was introduced to PickTime, I thought, wow, look, effectively, this looks like something that I would be proud to have as a design alongside my website. You know, you can decide what pictures you want large. You can have subsections of, in my case, it's a wedding, but it could be a portrait. It could be any kind of job, couldn't it? And in fact, even for commercial, I've used it with subsections. I'm doing a commercial job for a landscaping company at the moment. It's a really good-looking interface.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? And that's what struck me about it. When I saw your one all those years ago, I thought, wow, that does look absolutely incredible. And I've used it. I've even had all of my old galleries from my old provider moved across. PickTime offer a service where they will move all of your old galleries across, which was good because I had something like 450 of them to do.
I did all that manually, Kev.
Oh, no, there you go. So they'll do it for you. But yeah, I mean, it looks amazing. And it's really funny, actually, because just last week I had an email from a client whose wedding I shot in June or something like that. Yeah. And actually, it wasn't from the client, it was from the mum. So the mum emailed me and she said, I just want to say that the pictures were amazing, but also the website that you provided them for their guests to look at was just phenomenal.
See?
And I was like, well, I didn't provide that website. PickTime did. But that's a very, very good thing, don't you think?
Well, I think it's good if it interfaces and people think it feels like it's part of your brand.
Yeah. So, like I say, PickTime will be with us for hopefully a few months or so, and you can, both Neil and I use it, and we would not be talking about anybody on the show that we don't both fully support ourselves. No. And you can actually get a PickTime have been very kind and have offered us all at the FujiCast 1 month free when upgrading to any PickTime pay plan, and you can just use the code FujiCast. And you can do that by going to their website, which is www.pick-time.com, and the code is FujiCast. And we will, of course, put this in the Facebook group and on the show notes.
So pick-time.com.
Correct.
Right, questions. One from Marcus Norman. Hello, from an expat living in Lake Forest, just north of Chicago, USA.
Why would you change your name from Pat to Marcus, do you think?
Okay. I had to think about that for a minute. Yes. Hello from an expat called Marcus, living in Lake Forest. I've been enjoying your podcast for a few months now, and I appreciate your shared knowledge. Well, Kev's the one with the knowledge. I just pass the baton to him. Wisdom. You got wisdom, Kev, and inspiration. In nearly every...
I do need to go to the dentist. Have you tried getting a dental appointment recently?
What are you talking about? Oh, wisdom teeth. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
No, I'm okay. I get a dental. We live just literally. I mean, it's less than 5 minutes walk from this front door to the dentist.
I'm still lucky enough to be on an NHS dentist.
Yeah, and I am as well. Yeah. But
blimey! Trying to get hold of hours, it's like trying to pull teeth out of a chicken, so to speak.
It still costs money, though, even if you're on the NHS. A crown will still cost you 300, 400 quid.
Oh, no, it doesn't. But I don't mind paying them the money.
It does, Kev. It does. That's what it costs.
It does. I had a root canal done about 3 years ago, and it cost me 76 quid.
That's not bad.
That was 4 sessions.
Yeah. You can't argue.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'd happily pay somebody. All I want is a checkup. But
I'll check up, Kev. Come down here.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I'll have a look in your gob. I started with photography, shooting portraits, headshots about 4 years ago, and relied on a job referral service called Thumbtack to gain clients and experience. That worked well enough, so I stopped the service, and then the pandemic hit. Consequently, work slowed down to only a few portraits per week. While I do enjoy photographing people, I'm starting to consider using a few of my interior design and real estate photos to gain some additional work. When I just first started out with photography, I tried shooting interiors and architecture and asked a few friends if I could photograph their spaces, which I really enjoyed, but thought portraiture could be more viable. My question is related to branding, speciality, and this is something we talk about quite a lot, Kev, actually. What do you both think about potentially having two separate websites? One for the portraits, one for the architecture. It feels to me that the audience and product for each is so different that it could make sense. I may have just answered my own question, actually, but I'm always curious to hear your take.
Yeah, I think architecture and portraits are so different.
Wildly different.
Wildly makes sense to have separate ones. Yeah, we have said this many times that if it's something like I don't know, portraiture and pet photography, then they're similar, aren't they? Similar-ish in that, but yeah, architecture. I think architecture, you're going to be looking at more kind of corporate clients, and they're going to have certain expectations, and you don't want to be, you don't want to kind of muddle up the Google search stuff and kind of get cross messages across there. I think I would go separate websites for that.
It is interesting to see the amount of photographers that have now mixed everything together in one website, and it's been something that's happened to some photographers over lockdown. They've thought, right, I want to show my breadth of work. I'm throwing mud against the wall in some respects.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a whole load of that because people were bored, weren't they? And they had time to go through their archives and all of that kind of stuff. And that's fine. If it's complementary work, then yeah, it makes sense. I've also noticed, I did it myself, a whole load of kind of people now, especially now that the financial crisis is impacting a bit, closing down websites and spurious websites that they might have built as a hobby or whatever. A lot of them are disappearing. I think it was Squarespace that I was reading about. Squarespace said that they are sites are closing faster than they've ever seen before.
What? Really?
Yeah, because a lot of people set up let's just say you're a hobbyist street photographer, and you've done it as a not vanity is not the right word, but as a portfolio type place. And it's not for money. And now suddenly, electricity bills are going up and all that kind of stuff. And you're thinking, my £240 Squarespace bill is coming soon. Maybe I don't need that site any longer. So there's a lot of that going on.
Well, I wonder though whether people would be more likely to say, I'll keep that because I need to earn a few extra pennies over this particular...
But as I said, on the sites that aren't income earners, there's a lot of people with sites that aren't income earners.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that I think tend to be the ones going down.
What do you think about the going back to mixing stuff on a website? I'm not a prude, but I've always felt I've winced slightly when I've seen websites that have weddings and children portraiture. I think you know what I'm going to say now. Next to a big section on boudoir.
I agree with you. I don't necessarily think that. I mean, there's a lot of great boudoir photographers out there, and most of them, the ones that are worth their merit, I think, have a very, very clever entry way into the website.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I personally wouldn't do it, but people do. And
well, I mean, I've seen a few Instagram sites of profiles of late where they've mixed up the boudoir and slightly more, what should we say, saucy photography. That's a very old-fashioned postcard word. Alongside their wedding work or landscapes, and I've always thought, do you know what? I might keep those two separate.
Yeah, probably.
Even on a hobbyist site, which isn't supposed to sound like I'm patronising, because there's some fantastic amateurs and hobbyists. But even on that kind of profile, keep the two separate, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends, doesn't it? I in principle, I agree with you, but it does depend a little bit on your target. And, there's a lot of really good photographers out there who are, especially female photographers, who are, putting good work together to, kind of empower and embrace and, all of that stuff together. And so there's no, we're probably not the people to say to them, we don't recommend you those two types of images together. That's for them to decide, I suppose. But I mean, if it was me personally, big fat middle-aged Kev, I wouldn't.
Oh, Kev, you're not big fat.
But I think there's people have to make their choices, don't they? Ultimately, but Instagram, I have to say I haven't seen much of that on Instagram, but I know Instagram's pretty brutal with its algorithm. So, you put something up that's remotely saucy, and they just whip it down again.
Right, Facebook, your turn.
Okay, so as you know, the way to get questions to us, as Neil said at the beginning of the show, is click up fujicast.co.uk, or you can leave a post on the Facebook group. There's a pinned thread right at the top. Now, 2 weeks ago was the last time anybody put a question in there.
What?
2 weeks.
But it has been summer, Kev. It's summer holidays. Everybody's been in Spain next to their swimming pool.
True, but that's no excuse. That's our excuse, not their excuse.
Right.
We expect our listeners to be working constantly. Feed the monster. Anyway, as is my little tradition, I will start with the most recent post 2 weeks ago. John Rose. Hi, Kev. Hi, Neil. Do you think with the release of the XH2S and a focus on video that Fujifilm will give us additional LUTs for F-Log beside Eterna? I would love to see a LUT for classic chrome or classic neg, perhaps their own interpretation of some movie looks. I think this would give Fujifilm a huge leg up on other competitors and a great starting point for color grading. Thank you both for such a great show. There you go. What do you think?
I tend to shoot fairly flat and then add LUTs in post-processing. So what we're suggesting here is not doing any real post-processing and sort of having straight out the camera stuff ready to go. Is that's what we're talking about, isn't it? So you can speed the process up a bit.
Yeah, so Fujifilm do provide a LUT, an official Fujifilm LUT, which is an Eterna one, which you can get an F-Log, but it's for F-Log.
Yeah.
So you shoot in F-Log on the camera, which is effectively RAW. Then you go into Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve or something. Yep. You download the Eterna LUT from the Fujifilm website, and then you apply that a little bit like you would apply classic chrome.
Oh, we're not talking about the post processing then. I thought he was saying, have we got something that we can use in camera so it comes out everything's hunky dory when I want to see it without doing any work on it? No,
so F-Log is RAW. So this is all done in Premiere Pro. Now I did think, I'm just going to check Fujifilm. I did think they'd done a second one. I don't know. I can't even find it. So if they did, it wouldn't have been classic chrome. So my answer to that is probably we won't ever see that kind of thing from Fujifilm themselves. I think they leave that up to the third parties. You can, by the way, John, if you are so kind of inclined, you can create your own LUT. So you could, the easiest way to do it, or one of the easiest ways to do it, is open up a raw photo in Photoshop RAW, Camera Raw, apply the classic Chrome Adobe emulation to that. Once that image is opened, you can then create a lookup table from within Photoshop, which you can then use in Premiere Pro. I don't know whether that would work in things like DaVinci Resolve, all that kind of stuff. I think they're pretty good at using that as well.
Right, okay.
But yes, so you could go ahead and do it your own way. How that would look, I don't know, but it's a possibility. So my guess, my gut feeling is no, they probably wouldn't be putting too much time and effort into that kind of stuff, like third party.
There's so much third party LUT production out there, though, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, you need the difference between kind of RAW files and in terms of stills and F-Log files in terms of raw video footage is that the LUTs do typically need to be, well, they work better if they are allocated for the particular camera they come from. So F-Log is Fujifilm log, C-Log, is that Canon?
Yeah.
Presumably that's what they call it.
Yeah. S-Log for Sony.
S-Log for Sony.
Clue is in the S.
But anyway, they all have their own raw video footage formats. Yes. So, explore a little bit more. I wouldn't expect Fujifilm to be putting too much effort into that. I might be wrong.
I'll tell you, there's a very good company to go to called Motion Array. You'll be aware of Motion Array, won't you, Kevin?
Yeah.
And they do, well, not only do they do LUTs for video, they do loads of LUTs for Instagram, the Instagram looks, etc. But they have lots and lots of stuff for Premiere Pro.
Yeah.
When I would imagine then, by extension, for other editing digital stations as well. I can't see why they wouldn't. Cinematic LUTs. Oh, there's a fantastic one there. Blockbuster LUTs. Any LUT you could possibly want. Hallucination LUTs. What does that look like?
Sounds very dangerous, that.
It does, that one. I wouldn't touch that one. But yeah, that motion array would be a good place to start as well if you want to look for if you're looking for specific kind of movie LUTs. Great. Michael Marin. Did we read one from Michael already? No. Was Michael just now? Oh, no, that was Marcus Norman. Sorry. Michael Marin. Hello, Neil and Kev. Question about focusing tech. I have an X100F. I've been experimenting with single autofocus, auto and manual both set, back button focusing, usually using a focus recompose strategy, manual focusing with peaking, and zone focusing with peaking. I'm assuming that the mechanism the camera uses to create the manual focus peaking is essentially the same that it uses to determine the autofocus. If my assumption is correct, it is the case that the choice of autofocus versus various manual focus methods is really one of personal preference rather than any technical differences under the hood. ? All the best, Mike Marin. I think he's sort of working through his thoughts there, isn't he? But would you concur, as they say?
Yes, I would. Essentially, you've just got different options there.
Yeah.
Or if you're manually focusing with focus peaking on, for example. That would be the same as manually focusing with split prism on.
Yeah.
It's just different kind of mechanisms, if you like, for it to get into your brain. However, I would say that focus peaking don't trust that within an inch of its life, because this depends a little bit also on the setting that you have for your digital or film depth of field scale. Depth of field, digital film. And that will affect a little bit the focus peaking as well, because one is kind of a little bit more accurate, if you like. One is a little bit more forgiving. But yes, ultimately, you've got lots of options. You've got a lot of options in the Fujifilm range.
I'm listening here thinking, should I be trusting my peaking when I'm filming as well then? Or you saying...
As long as it's kind of in the middle, roughly, it's... You know what it's like when you're filming with focus peaking. It appears sometimes that everything is in focus when it clearly can't be.
No.
I find it a little bit more not reliable, but reassuring when it's close-up stuff. But yeah, I mean, I typically when I'm filming with focus peak highlighting, I normally press the rear command dial in to do a focus check.
Oh, do you? Right.
Just to close up, and then the focus peak highlighting also stays on the focus check, so you can double check closer upper. Be a closer upper person like me.
Yeah. On the X100 thing, I saw, I'm sure it was in our Facebook group the other day, that X100Vs are actually exchanging hands now for more money than they are brand new, because you just can't get them.
Yeah.
What are they new? What are they new now? What are they, Kev?
I don't know if you can even...
Well, it should be...
I'm looking on Amazon now, right? There is no new ones on Amazon. I tell you, they're going for $2,500 on Amazon.
Well, there we go then.
They're secondhand. But let me have a look on the official Fujifilm.
On the Fujifilm shop. I'm just going to the Fujifilm shop now.
They won't have them, but it'll give us an idea of pricing.
There we go. Well, I can find a refurbished one, but that's out of stock as well.
No, it'll be out of stock, but it'll give you that. So the retail price,
£1,349 is the retail price on an X100V. So yeah, that's what they were saying. They were going for £2,000 plus.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, supply and demand. That's a marketplace for you. Nothing wrong with it.
So why have we got to that stage with the 100V when once upon a time you could get them really easily? Now you can't get them at all.
It's not the 100V. It's all stuff. It's everything. It's everything. I can't even get a part for my car. It's everything. Nothing. The whole world is busted. That's the reason why. There you go. That's my democratic reply to it. But no, it's just supply. I think there's still issues with the semiconductors.
Is it chip gate? Yeah, it's still chip
semiconductor
gate,
shortages.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of issues going on, isn't there, with supply chain stuff all around the world for all kinds of things. So yeah, you're lucky. I mean, if you... and somebody, I saw that thread, I think, on the Facebook group, and somebody kind of said that it's wrong for people to be selling them secondhand at that kind of price.
Yeah.
Personally, I think It's not. That is economics. That's the whole point of it. If you have a big demand for something that has a low supply, then the price goes up. Hence, that's what we've seen with petrol and everything and foods. We're seeing it right now with everything in our daily lives. Because there is a low supply, the price is going up, and that's real life.
So have we got time for a QQ from Facebook?
Yeah, why not? Albert of Villaroman, it says, is there any hope for version 2 of the XF 60mm lens?
I don't know. Over to you, Kev. I wish there's times where I wish Andreas was sitting on my lap.
Yeah. So I remember sitting in a meeting with Fujifilm. I think it was in Dubai, actually, funny enough. And the question came up, which lenses should we work on version 2s of? I put both my hands up and both my feet up for the 18mm. Not many others did, actually. And funny enough, that was one of the ones I came through with. But the 60mm was one of the ones that was popular with the other photographers. Yeah. So I wouldn't give up hope.
I've got your 60mm here.
Yeah, I know you got it. Yeah. It's a lovely lens. It's one of the sharpest lenses that Fujifilm have ever done. And it was one of the first. It was the first in the first batch of lenses they released.
And a metal hood.
But it is bloody slow to focus. That's the only problem with it.
Oh yeah, you can bring up your children, send them to university in the time it takes.
Yeah.
But it is a lovely lens. I'll put it down there in the another thing I've got of Mullins' pile. There we go.
Yeah. So the answer is, Albert, I don't know. I would like one also. I mean, if they could do, it's got me thinking now. If they could do a 60mm, well, yeah, I'd be happy with it 2.4 because it's still 2.4, but with as a 1-to-1 macro that was, it doesn't have as a macro lens. It doesn't have to be, doesn't need a linear motor. It doesn't have to be rocket fast. It doesn't need to, it's not going to need, doesn't need to pacify the quick kids who are running around weddings shooting, 4,000-5,000 frames. It needs to be quicker, of course. But yeah, I would like to see a new one of those.
Do you do a lot of macro?
No, because you've got my lens.
Have you not got anything at all you can do macro with? No.
No. I did rent the GFX macro lens.
Oh,
I think it's 110mm. My God, it was like you could cut your eyes open with it, the images that created. And I did think about buying it, but I then thought, why? What do you need it for? And the answer was nothing, so I didn't buy it.
Those days of just buying stuff because you want it rather than need it, Kev.
I don't know, tell me about it.
Right, let's hear from our guest for this week. And I know it's a guest you've been pursuing for a little while now, so Kev, I'm delighted that we have on the show part 1 this week, part 2 in a couple of weeks' time, the multi-award winning photographer and studio owner from the States, Ben Chrisman.
Ben, how are you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me.
No worries. It's great to have you. We've kind of toyed with back and forth messages over the years to get you on the show, so it's great that you're finally here. Where are you at the moment in the world?
I'm home in Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay, and what's the weather like?
It's been really rainy lately, but it's sunny today, which is great. Might be able to play tennis.
Oh, nice. The benefits of running your own business. So many of our listeners are kind of wedding photographers, so a lot of them will know your work and your style, and you've been on the speaking circuit for a long time, etc. But for those that don't, what's your background? I think you were a newspaper reporter originally, I think, weren't you a journalist?
Yeah. Like so many of us, we started in newspapers and then realized we needed to make more than poverty level minimum wage. And so we branched out to shooting weddings. Erin was the same way. She was a journalist as well, my wife. And that was, I think, left newspapers in 2005, 2006. Yeah. And been going hard with weddings ever since.
Is that how you met?
It is how we met at a wedding in Mexico. Matt and Sol's wedding, I think 2008 to late 2007. And she was a photographer in Atlanta. I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and didn't take long for us to kind of unite. And because we've been attached at the hip ever since. Excellent.
And so you went from newspapers to wedding. Was it just like a straight instant swap? How was that first wedding? How did that come about, and what happened, and how did that work out?
Well, my friend Brett Butterstein and I were working at the same newspaper in New Mexico, and we kind of hit a point where we didn't feel like we were growing that much as photographers. We kind of needed to change things up. So we kind of, quit the same week, with the idea that we would continue to do documentary work and shoot weddings at the same time. We had gone to a conference where we heard Matt Mendelsohn talk, and he's a former photojournalist as well in DC. And he was talking about how he could make like $5,000 at a wedding. And that to us was absolutely insane amount of money. So we had it in the back of my mind that we would be wedding photographers, but we both wanted to go be war photographers like James Nakwe. And I was planning on going to Iraq. Tsunami happened in Asia, Southeast Asia. So I went and photographed that instead. I ended up taking a workshop with Nakwe and Gary Knight and Anthony Karachville. And that really kind of changed a lot about how I shoot. It kind of kicked my ass in a big way. Even though I thought I knew what I was doing, I really didn't. And they kind of steered me in the right direction. And so after I came home from a couple months photographing the tsunami and realizing how little money I made and how much I lost, I was like, okay, I need to start shooting weddings right from the get-go. And I did. And I just had never run my own business before. I was 26, 27. And I didn't realize what a commitment it was to start a wedding photography business or run your own business in general, and how much of it is not taking pictures. And so my friend Michael Cody at the time, he was kind of mentoring me. He's like, dude, you're never going to be able to shoot doc half the year and weddings half the year, because he realized the effort that it takes to run a business. And he was right. And that's how, I kind of switched from shooting journalism to just shooting weddings and running, Ben Chrisman photography, because I literally didn't have enough time in the day to go out and shoot doc stories anymore, because they weren't paying anything and I needed to be paid for something.
Yeah. Oh, you mentioned Brett Butterstein. I spent a week with him in FDF in Argentina, I think, a few years back.
No way.
He's such a cool guy. Yeah, such a cool guy.
He's the best. I love Brett. It's just his birthday a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I think I saw that on Facebook. I was only with him for 5 days or whatever, but I learned a lot from him, just, in the bar and all that kind of stuff. He's a great guy. So yeah. And so those kind of, that experience of spending time with somebody like Natchway and stuff, I mean, that must have been, you mentioned that it was, it really taught you some lessons. When you see something like, war photojournalism, and then, you align it with what we do as wedding photographers, there are some crossovers, but also obviously there is there's ethical differences and all kinds of other stuff like that. But ultimately, we are photographers and we're there to capture, human emotions. When it comes to your wedding photography, and we'll talk about the family stuff and everything in a while, but how would you describe your style? If somebody said to you in 5 words, Ben, tell me what your wedding photography style is.
Well, first of all, I still consider myself a documentary photographer, which is why I like weddings, because to me, they are just a natural extension of my journalism days. And when I was a journalist, I took a lot of portraits as well. I think most of the assignments were portraits, and back then you're shooting film, you go outside, hit them with a flash f8 250, and that's your portrait every single time. So people think that journalism is just these really documentary moments. In reality, it's a lot of portraiture. And so with weddings, I've kind of had to learn to be a better portrait photographer. But the reason why I love weddings so much is it feels like I'm going on assignment. I get to meet new people. I get to kind of get myself in the middle of their lives on really personal days. So for me, it's still really exciting. I love photographing weddings as much as I like photographing anything, honestly. And so it was a very easy transition to go from thinking that I was going to be a war photographer to actually shooting a wedding, because it was so immersive and I really got to just jump in and shoot the way I wanted to shoot, which is basically taking all the aspects that I loved about Nakwe and Lotta Foged and, Alex Webb and, Sally Mann, all these photographers that I love so much. I would just kind of pick and choose what I loved about their work, and I applied them to wedding photography. And I've been doing that same thing ever since. I still before I shoot a wedding, I'll go look at Inferno by Nakwe. And that kind of, as dark as that book is, it's kind of like my Bible. And I go and I get, jazzed up and I go shoot a wedding. I go to Magnum before, I don't look at wedding photographers before I shoot a wedding. I go to Magnum, I go to 7. And they're the ones who kind of give me my spirit, I guess.
I always say to my students, look, if everybody's a documentary wedding photographer to a certain style, even the ones that are far more editorial, they do the candid elements throughout the day. It's always happening. And yeah, you're right. You can't, nobody is right or wrong in terms of stylistic choices. Everybody does it differently, and they do it for whatever their clients want, which is quite correct. However, there is if you take the word candid and you take the word kind of a portrait, for example, as the stage, one of your beautiful, well lit kind of wonderful portraits, and then the candid element on the day, maybe during the cocktails or whatever. Do you have a preference? Do you prefer that kind of nitty gritty of the candid work, or do you prefer the more kind of work where you're setting up lights and all of that kind of stuff?
Oh, I certainly don't like shooting all the lights and things like that. If I had a choice, I would just shoot basically, I think more like you do, without a flash and pure documentary. I just can't get away with doing that over here. People want the big epic portraits. I mean, that's what people hire us for, the documentary work and the big crazy little people shots. And I really like doing those because those I feel very creative to me. And we've gotten to a point where we can bang out the straightforward portraits really fast, so we can really concentrate on getting the bigger shots, the more epic shots that people expect. Because even though we might have a couple who we think are straightforward, at the end of the day, they're saying, they'll reference some picture that was really abstract. And we're like, okay, all right, that's what they want too. And we didn't expect it, but we've gotten to the point where we know we've got to do it every single time. And that's kind of the challenge is, because a lot of places that we shoot don't, like where I'm coming from in Santa Fe, where we had big open skies and beautiful light, it was much easier for me to go in and take those types of portraits. A lot of times we're shooting in more like, confined spaces. So we have to use a little bit more abstraction, shooting through things to kind of get these more creative shots that people are looking for.
Yeah. And ultimately, the sign of a good business is delivering stuff that clients want, and that's an interesting point about, you say that over here people kind of want the different styles, which makes perfect sense because in rusty old England, where we've got castles and dark caves as hotel rooms for weddings, places do exist, but obviously in parts of the world where you have these beautiful backdrops, of course it's going to be it's almost like a cultural thing, when they want their wedding pictures or they want their their engagement pictures, they want to use that backdrop, and it makes perfect sense. I speak to people from America quite often, and they say, I want to do it like you, Kev. I want to just do 100% documentary. But they really find that challenging, and you've just kind of affirmed that it's kind of like the places that you live and the people that are there, they have their own understanding of what wedding photography is, and that kind of brings me on to the business point, because you're, as much as you are a very, very good photographer, you're also a phenomenally successful business, and I say partnership because it's you and Erin, of course. And
thanks, guys.
And the other guys, and you've got people working for you in different countries, I believe. So the studio itself, tell me about the studio. How has that progressed? How has that become this blossom from where you were to this kind of multi-country business, if you like?
Well, it started pretty humble, and honestly, it is still pretty humble. It looks, at Christmas Studios, I think probably looks bigger than it is when it's really just, the six of us, and we're like a tight little family. I started like working out of my garage, then I met Erin, and then when we moved to San Francisco, we looked for an intern, and we just happened to get two amazing guys, Aaron Morris and Mauricio Arias, who were only a week apart in age. And they were basically, they became our brothers instantly. They would basically live at our house, spend a year doing Lightroom work, kind of learning how we shoot. And then we just kind of said, here you go. I've taught a lot of workshops. I've never taught those two guys anything. I've never taught them. I never sat them down. They just kind of absorbed what they wanted to do. Mauricio was really good at just getting on YouTube and learning how to do things on YouTube. And, they were 20 years old, 21 years old. And so they started shooting for us. And then we had Dave Getchman. We had JVS on team for a little while. And now, Mauricio is living in Italy because we were teaching a workshop at Graphi, and he fell in love with the owner's daughter, and he ended up moving to Italy, and they have a beautiful kid now, Luna. And
beautiful story. That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's like, it feels it's international, but it's really he fell in love and moved to Italy. Ryan's in San Francisco. Vlad is in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And then Matt Legault's here with us in Charleston. So it's a good team, and we can, people can throw about anything at us and we can handle it.
Good. How was the whole COVID thing for the business? How did you manage to get through that?
We never stopped working. We also had a portrait studio at the time, and we stayed busy through that. Even when things shut down and the roads were empty, like the four of us were like running around Charleston shooting like front step stories, basically for free. But what that happened was it kind of kept our momentum up. So when COVID restrictions kind of loosened here in Charleston, those people that we had done a free portrait shoot for on the front steps started calling us, and we started shooting them for real, like for real money, like our normal pricing. And so that was one thing our business partner Raheel was really smart about. Like, he really pushed us to like not shut down, to get out of the house, continue shooting. And that really kind of carried us through. Last year has been our best year, was like a peak year for us. It was amazing. And that was versus 2020, which kind of was awful. And we didn't make as much money, but we never stopped shooting. And I was really proud of us for not quitting. There are benefits of living in a Republican state sometimes, and because they didn't really stop, like versus when because we continued to fly throughout COVID, like with weddings in New York and San Francisco, more elopements. And when I would go to San Francisco, it was like the whole world had ended. People were like really scared of each other, but you come to Charleston and everyone's at the bars. So, there's good and bad to both sides. But we just kind of pushed through. I mean, financially, COVID wasn't great, but luckily, the government gave us, PPP money and things like that. So we survived fine. And then we just kind of, as soon as we kept going.
Yeah, I think it's a familiar story about last year. I mean, for us, I think in the UK, we were pretty much back to allowing weddings and stuff kind of September time. And that September to the end of the year was just crazy. It was catch-up weddings all over the place. It was busy. Everybody did a year's worth of work in like 4 months.
Right.
It was brutal. But still talking a little bit about kind of the economics of business and stuff. Right now, I think the whole world is kind of facing this prophet of doom of recessions and rising bills and economy problems and everything. Are you noticing anything in your future bookings? Is that having an impact, do you think, in terms of maybe less inquiries or people wanting to pay a little bit less? I know that's definitely the case in the UK.
Honestly, I don't know. Weddings are so weird, man. We started really hard in January. We ended up getting COVID in January in Antigua, or in Costa Rica, and then we ended up in Antigua, and we ended up losing like our biggest job we've ever had because we got COVID. So that was awful. Mm-hmm. But after that, we've been on the road constantly until about 3 weeks ago, and we're home and home for a little bit. I've got to go to New York next week, and I go back to every fall. I go to San Francisco and do a lot of shoots for all our past clients, that's honestly kept us afloat more than even weddings, is learning how to do family photography and doing it in our way. And so that's really helped because I don't know what's going on in weddings. Weddings are hit and miss. We don't shoot much in Charleston, so we really rely on getting on airplanes a lot. And, for better or for worse, it's an awful business model, but it makes life more fun than shooting at the same place every time. Weddings, we tend to get booked more last minute. So next year is pretty wide open, and that's generally how it always has been for us. People with money tend to think they can book everything regardless of time. And so that has always happened to us a lot. We don't get the brides that book us 2 years out or a year and a half out.
Yeah.
We're always last minute.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. So talking about the family photography, and you said, you do the family photography in our style, in our own particular way. What is that way, do you think?
Well, first of all, we made the huge mistake, for 10, 15 years where, we'd photograph a couple's wedding and then they'd have a kid and they write us like, hey, do you want to do this? And we'd say, no. We'd pass them on to Anna Cooperberg or somebody who did do families. And, that was really dumb because we really first of all, staying in touch with people and kind of growing up with them and getting to see, we're very interested in our clients. We really like them as friends. And two, financially, that was dumb. we were just so busy back then that because Aaron and I were flying out almost every single weekend, we would fly home, try to get the wedding done as fast as possible, and then we'd have to fly back out. So we didn't really have the capacity to do a lot of shoots locally. But then when we had a kid, we consciously said, okay, we want to stay home. That's when we created the portrait studio with Reveal. And then we also started learning from a guy named Steve Saporito in Australia, and he really kind of changed everything, how we do things, and learning to sell products, albums and wall arts, wall art being the key, not being shoot and burn. And that has that honestly saved our lives through COVID, because we weren't shooting a ton of weddings through COVID, but we were shooting a ton of families. Yeah. And the families are great because they already trust you. And people, when they get married, they generally have the least amount of money they're ever going to have, and they're not only because they're not as, their careers haven't evolved as much, but also they're giving money to so many different people. But once they have a family, there's nothing more important than that. They usually gotten raises, promotions, they have different jobs, they have more money and disposable income than they did at a wedding. So they're much more easy to spend $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 on a family session. Versus a wedding, it happens so much, and we can, make 10 grand at a wedding, but then we shoot one family session that's, hour or two long, we make the same amount of money. So the families are really been key to our sanity and our bank account the last few years.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I mean, when you said 5, 10, 15 grand for a family shoot, I can imagine all of the UK photographers go fainting listening to that. That's good figures, good numbers. I
mean, that's kind of the normal. I mean, 5 grand's kind of the minimum. And
that's based on product, essentially, wall art mostly.
It depends. So we have a digital file package that's $4,500 for the family session. So people can either buy an individual digital file, they can buy a set of them for $2,450, or the complete set of high-res files for $4,500, whatever the complete set is. Sometimes that's 70 photos, sometimes it's 200, depending on the shoot. And then they can buy, prints on top of that, or wall arts. And the thing is, we're actually giving them real stuff that they see every day, so they appreciate it. It's not just, money going out the window. It's like, of course, there's nothing more important than your kids. So,
absolutely.
But of course, there's no obligation. So they pay a very small fee up front, like $450 for the shoot. And so the pressure is all on us to do a good job. If we don't do a good job, then there's nothing that they want bad enough to purchase it. So in going back to how we shoot it like a wedding. We try to do a lot of candids, but we always try to get these really kind of crazy, more epic, abstract, creative portraits of the family. That's really hard sometimes when it's big groups, like 15 people, those are harder on me. I would much rather shoot one family that's got 2 or 3 kids, 1 kid, something like that, than 3 extended family all come into the beach for a family vacation.
Right, part 2 of that interview coming up in 2 weeks' time. Now that we've gone bi-monthly, which means, Kev,
twice a month, once every 2 weeks, every day. 6 weeks a month.
Right, Pick Time have kindly picked us up, and they're supporting us, which is very kind of them. And it's a product that you and I use, Kev. So it's not the sort of thing that we're promoting without any understanding or use of it. We both use it. We've both been using it for years now, literally years. And I have to say, when I first started using PicTime, my sales did go up. And I think that's because of the presentation, this really fantastic presentation of your images online. But you use it in a slightly more technical fashion than me, and I could learn a trick or two from you.
Yeah, well, I guess, there's two added strands to PicTime. It's more than just a gallery, of course. They actually have this element called art galleries, which is amazing for those people who aren't necessarily, wedding photographers or, kind of street photographers or anything like that, where you can just have a gallery in your website. I use it in my f16.clip, where people can just click on this page. It's fully integrated into the website, and they can buy prints. Simple as that. They can buy prints of my travels. They can buy some of my Botanica prints, and they sell, and it's great, and it's fully automated.
So in that you use this differently to me, clearly in this respect, that looks like an integral part of your F16 website, not like you're being taken away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the art galleries, they provide an embed code. You just plop it in, and it just looks like it's part of your website.
I had no idea. Seriously, It might sound like an advertorial or whatever, but I had no idea that that's the way it happened on F16 for you.
Yeah, art galleries, and it's all included. And of course, you mentioned the sales, and I think that's probably the big power of PickTime is the automations. And what really works for me, and I don't know how you use it, Neil, but what really works for me is I give my clients and I give their guests a certain period of time where they have a discount. So again, it's all automated. I have all my packages set up. I have two kind of bespoke packages, package 1, package 2, which is a combination of products. And for the first 10 days, I'll have a little banner that comes up on the shop that says, 10% off with this code for the next 10 days, next 9 days, next 8 days. And it's brilliant, really, really cool. And it does really genuinely drive sales. And the cleverest thing really about it all is that they have these automation apps effectively. So you could, for example, embed a anniversary app, and automatically around about the time of the anniversary, it's going to start emailing clients and say, hey, remember, it's your anniversary. Yeah. Use this code to get 10% off, or just remember to buy your album or your prints or whatever. Yeah. And of course, a lot of people use it for Black Friday sales, Christmas time. Portrait photographers especially will be using it at that time. Really, 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 really very, very clever.
I need to start using the automated part of it more. I know.
Well, we shall discuss it a little bit more over the coming months. I'm sure we will over
the coming months. Right. If you want to try out PickTime, then you go to pick-time.com. There is a code, Kev, isn't there?
There is indeed. FujiCast, all uppercase. FujiCast. That will give you 1 month free.
Perfect. Right, back to your questions. We got Zine of the Week
coming. Somebody did post to say I was right, though.
About what?
About that bi-monthly thing. It means it can be both. It could mean twice a month,
right,
or every other month.
No, it's twice a month, Kev.
No, somebody posted.
Well, just because somebody posted, I'm not. I was like, look,
I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it.
You find it. Look, I'm going to write what does bi-monthly mean? Right, okay. Done. Produced or occurring twice a month or every 2 months.
Oh, there you go.
All right, okay.
There we go. So that means we can do it. We're doing the next one in November.
Oh, no. Well, I'd take my hat off. I'm wrong. What's the point of having a mind if you can't change it? Is the famous expression.
Language is a very complicated thing, isn't it? Why did they invent that terminology? Why didn't they just leave it at every 2 weeks?
Yeah. Somebody
why did some clever clogs have to come along and shorten it, give it an acronym? Is it an acronym?
No. It's an adjective, isn't it? Bi-monthly.
Oh, don't start me on adjectives.
Or is it an adverb?
I don't know. Is it a pronoun? No.
Well, anyway, should we go back to questions quickly? Gareth Lines. You'll be getting lines. Hi, both. Question, what do you guys use, Lightroom CC or Lightroom Classic? And for what reason? I have Classic, but not used it. I see a lot of photographers who use Classic for their workflow. Kind regards from Gareth. Oh, that was short and sweet. Classic or Lightroom CC? God, you know what? What do I use? I just hit the icon, Kev, and it works. And it has your presets on it.
Ta-da!
And they work.
Well, I use both effectively. So Lightroom Classic is your old-fashioned grown-up version of Lightroom that used to be called Lightroom. Another thing, Adobe really confused the pants off everybody by changing these names.
Yeah.
The nomenclature of it all went wrong.
I think I use Lightroom Classic.
Lightroom Classic is if you can do smart collections and all that kind of stuff, that's your Lightroom Classic.
Oh, Classic then.
Yeah, you got Lightroom Classic, and then Lightroom CC is your kind of cut down, streamlined version, which is much more aligned to the Lightroom mobile app that you might be using.
Yes, I use the mobile app all the time. It's brilliant.
Yeah, so I use a bit of both really. So I have my Lightroom Classic is my main workhorse one. And then Lightroom CC I use for all of my personal stuff. So all the stuff from Spain and everything went in there, and then that gets synced on my Adobe account, and all of that good stuff goes on in there. But Lightroom Classic is my workhorse.
There we go, Gareth. Right, Facebook. Now we are going to need more Facebook. Now we're bi-monthly, which is not every other month, by the way, but every other week. We're going to need some more because Kev looks after the Facebook group one, so. We're going to need more Facebook. More Facebook, please.
Okay, so I've got a question here from Jarell Gates.
Yep.
Hi, from Chicago. Kevin Neal, I would love to know if the XH2S can store video settings with the C1, C2, C3 parts of the spinny dial. Yes. I'm going to call it a spinny dial from now on. I love it. That's a much better name for it. The spinny dial.
The spinny dial. Yes, it can, can't it?
Yeah. Do you know what a spinny is?
It's something that grandmother used to use years ago to make clothing.
It's a tree.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why roads are called the spinny. Because it would have been trees.
You're right. The reason why I know that is because my parents still live there, Cherry Tree Close.
Right.
And the street next door was called the Spinney.
Yeah, we lived next to, in Beechwood Close in Hertford, next to the Spinney.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. That'll be why.
Anyway, so Jarell, custom settings on the spinny dial. I'm really hoping that it has the ability to save all the video settings, so you end up with C1 being your 4K 60p Eterna setting, then have C2 be your 180 to 120 frames per second with classic chrome, and so on. The Panasonic cameras have done it for ages. Good old Panasonic. And I was hoping that they would finally build something similar into the Fujifilm cameras that all have the PASM dial. Thanks either way. I've not looked into this, but my spidey sense says yes.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I've done no videoing on my XH2S yet.
I haven't yet. No, I've not done one thing. I took the camera out the other day to do some video work. And guess what I took?
What?
XH1. And I thought, I know, it's all set up for video. I'll just take that out quickly and get it done.
That's like going out for a posh meal with the ex-wife. What was the point?
Okay. I never thought of it that way, but now you mention it. Well, what does that say for me then? I had two XH1s. Is that legal?
I had an XH1 then in that case, and I've got two XH2Ss.
I think this is the way now we shall refer to our previous marriages, Kev. XH1, XH2S.
Yeah, so the answer is, I think yes. But I am putting the word think in front because I've not tried it. I'm pretty sure.
Right. I can't get over the XH1 analogy now. Matthew Larkin. Hi, Neil. Hi, Kev. I'm a recent listener, yada, yada, and you've mentioned your needed questions. Yes, we always are. I have one regarding the old 23mm 1.4 with clutch manual focus. Yes. Here's my conundrum. I prefer to keep focus mode in manual and use back button focus when desired, as this prevents autofocus during half-depressed shutter. However, to use manual focus at all with a 23, I need to also engage the clutch. And this seems to disable the back button focus. Now, you're a back button focuser, Kev, so you might have come across this. It appears I can use back button focus if I switch to single focus mode, but as I mentioned, I really prefer to keep the focus mode in manual, and I don't like the idea of switching the camera's focus mode back and forth every time I want to use the back button focus on the 23. Have you run into this problem, or am I perhaps overlooking something? Perhaps Kev will say, there's a PS on this, just trade it in for the new 18mm.
Yeah, so the original 23 did have a clutch, and so did the original 14. Short-lived technology, I would say, the clutch, because it only made it on those two lenses, and it was basically for that reason. So you will have to go into manual focus mode and use back button focusing. It doesn't matter where the clutch is at that point.
Right.
But if you like to have it in single shot mode and then use the clutch forward and back, then yes, the back button focusing will not work. So I used that 23mm with the clutch for like forever. I used it from the moment it was born to the moment it died. Well, it's not dead; it's in my cupboard, but to the moment I stopped using it. And yes, you just need to kind of understand that clutch is slightly different.
Why was the clutch? Was it a problem lens? Was it something they thought nobody really likes this? What's the point? Is it does it make it too complex in manufacturing process? Or?
Yeah, I don't know why they ditched it. Possibly because weather sealing. I don't know, technology. I just don't know. I don't know. But it only came on those two lenses and never came back.
No.
So don't know.
Never to be seen again.
The bloke what made those maybe went off to start designing the spinny dials.
Right, let's have the book of the week. No, it's not a book of the week this week. It's a zine of the week, but it's not called a zine of the week because you don't like that title. So it is the pamphlet of the supremely posh pamphlet of the week.
Posh pamphlet of the week, yeah. Okay, so we have a friend of mine, actually. I've met him a couple of times. He lives in Mexico. Friend of the show, Luis Alberto Padilla Gonzalez.
Oh,
there we go. Beautiful name, isn't it?
Yeah,
beautiful name, and he's a beautiful man, and he's a wonderful photographer. So he sent us posh pamphlet of some work from a collective called Hyperfocals,
right?
Of which he's.
I'm going to look him up while you're talking about Hyperfocals.
Hyperfocal. So you'll need to look it up on Instagram. HIPERFOCALES. Kind of street photography collective, of which he is one member and the founder. In fact, so this little posh pamphlet is a collection of work from all of those people. So we have him. Louis is page 29 to page 39. Then you've got Ricardo Garcia Manio, Hector Munoz Hureta, Juan Carlos Reyes Garcia. And it's lovely. It's really, really nice. And the one he did send us a couple of prints as well. So when I see you next, I will give those to you. I will give you the posh pamphlet and the print. And it's a lovely little kind of A5 softback, really, really simply designed. There's no text or bump or anything like that. It's just a little introduction at the beginning with the titles of the shots, and each of them are very different. Each photographer has a very different style. You know, there's a lot of some of the work I can see where they focus a lot on kind of color and textures. Some are a little bit more along the lines of people and emotions, interactions, but some really, really clever and beautiful kind of juxtapositions. I don't know whether you can get this book. I have to say, whether it's available or not, but I am going to point you at Lewis's Instagram, which is LuisPaglez. And if you do nothing else but you like street photography, go to that Instagram account and hit follow and like a couple of the shots, because it is wonderful. It's a really beautiful feed on Lewis's Instagram. But yeah, I mean, it's I'm looking at, if I concentrate on Lewis's ones, why not? Because he's the one who sent it to us, page 29 onwards. Lewis was one of those people that he came on one of my workshops in London a few years ago. And
all the way from Mexico?
All the way from Mexico.
Wow.
I think he was doing a little European road trip. He is one of those ones where, we kind of review. In fairness, I don't really take many images on my workshops because I'm too busy kind of organizing and sorting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We did the review afterwards. We went to the Pheasant Pub in by Liverpool Street Station, if I remember rightly. Yeah. We got the laptops out. I think he whipped out his iPad, whatever, did 5 minutes editing, and then produced these 10 incredible drops. I'm like, are you sure you've been with us today? You haven't been away with, on a Magnum Foundation course or something, but this afternoon. But yeah, just beautiful. Black and white is Lewis's kind of favorite style, I would say, in terms of, if you look at his Instagram feed, but also the images in this posh pamphlet.
What is his Instagram feed again? Just
LUIS. PAGLEZ.
Yes. Because I didn't grab it first time. I've got it now. Yes.
And Hyperfocals is the...
I've got Hyperfocals, yeah.
So there you go. You will have to contact Lewis. I would imagine if you're in Mexico or that part of the world, then perhaps there's availability of these posh pamphlets. They are really beautiful. I really like them. I love these. I'll never do it because I just never get around to this kind of stuff. I would love to produce something like this. It's so well done.
That's funny because I was just about to say, Kev, you have a great body of work. Well, you've got a great body as well, obviously, but you've got a great body of work. And I just think, I wonder whether it could be a 2020, what are we next year? We're 23 or 24? Where are we? 23?
I'm 50 next year.
Yeah, I know.
I told you that already.
No, I'm not 20. I meant the year, 2023. So is it kind of a project that you could see through for a year?
Maybe. I've got other things I need to do first. Well, more pressing, but yeah.
You seem sorted to me. I mean, you're going to take 8 weeks off in the summer, so it can't. You're sorted. You're organised, Mullins.
Yeah, I don't know. This kind of thing is, for example, I know that Lewis has been messaging me on WhatsApp saying, it's nearly done. I'm going to get it ready, and it took a while. So whether there was production issues or whether there was, just kind of editorial issues, don't know. But yeah, it's not an easy thing to do, is it? If you look at Thingy-Majiggy off YouTube, what's his name? Who does the book every year?
Sean Tucker.
Yes, yeah. Sean. It's not a quick, easy thing for him to produce that every year. No. So there has to be a return for it, or it doesn't have to be a return for it. Like in Lewis's case, I would imagine he's done it for the love of it. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, have a look. Luis Alberto Padilla Gonzalez, LuisPaglez on Instagram. We will of course link in the show notes.
He has a beautiful inquiring eye.
Oh yeah. I mean his images are just subtly nice. they're clever. There's a little bit of on-camera flash. There's a little bit of clever movement. What they call it in
intentional camera movement.
I love the way that he shoots through rainy windows.
Yes, I've seen. Yeah, that's a feature of his work. There's one here that looks like it's from New York. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think he's well travelled.
Yeah. Oh yeah, certainly on here. I've found some of his London work, and there's one that looks like an eyebrow. Is that you, Kev?
It might be.
Oh no, it's a fly on a window.
Is it a massive eyebrow?
It's huge. It's got wings. Yeah, but he does have this wonderful inquiring mind and eye. And I wonder if that comes from shooting in because here's one on. I recognise the station straight away. I'm at Paddington Station. I wouldn't think to shoot that particular shot because it's a scene I see every time I go to London, and it doesn't feel particularly special to me. But he's made it look special. But
yeah, that's true.
That's the thing about street work, though, isn't it?
Well, it's very subjective, and also, it's some people may look at this and think, not for me. But I think a lot of people, if you look closely enough at it, then I think you'll see some stuff that you think, wow, yeah, that's very, very.
He does love a good rainy day, though. I'll give you that. Okay.
There's the Bank of England Junction. We spent a lot of time there.
I spent a lot of time with you there as well. Casing the joint, isn't it? Casing the
Bank of England. Yeah, it's brilliant. That's the only place I've ever been chucked off the pavement.
Is it? Why were you chucked off the pavement? Are you not allowed to photograph there officially?
The Bank of England. So the Bank of England is not on the island at the Bank of England Junction.
No, it's not. No,
it's on the left-hand side, and so the pavement around the Bank of England is owned by the Bank of England. So technically, it's not private. It's not public land.
Oh,
so we were there,
right.
And the guy came out and he goes, "What are you doing?" He's like, just doing a photography workshop. He said, right, okay. He said, well, just so you know, you can't take pictures here, but if you want to take pictures of the bank, the best thing is to go across the island to take pictures of the bank. I was like, yeah, thanks. It was very kind of you. He was only doing his job, bless him, and then he had to chat about the cameras. But
did he? Okay. Right. So we'll put links to that on the show page today. I love, his personal Instagram feed, fantastic. We must put a link to that as well.
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
Right, back to questions. Will Collin, hi Neil, hi Kev. I wonder what your views are, the rights and wrongs of editing. Since we talked about Lightroom just a moment ago, specifically, do you aim for your edits to look natural with no obvious signs that the photos had any work done? Or do you think it's okay to amp it up in order to create a striking or interesting image, even if the viewer would know that it kind of looked like this in real life? I ask the question because I think I'm in the former camp, though I suspect I stray into the latter. Occasionally I come across other people's photos where there's a glaring halo along high contrast edges, such as buildings and a bright sky. They've obviously maxed out the clarity or structure, and in my humble opinion, if it's that obvious, then it's too much. But I'm certainly guilty of other trickery, like cloning out inconvenient detail or desaturating the colour out of distracting elements in the frame. Oh, I hold my hand up, guilty as charged with that one. I found that once I've done editing a shot, I'll leave it for 10 minutes, come back. I often find it, if it looks overdone, I have to dial down the changes that I've made. How do you know when you've done enough but not too much? Thanks for the great show. As ever, with best wishes, Will Collin. I'm sort of smiling a bit there, Kev, because the desaturating of colour is something I do a lot if I don't want something in the background to be distracting.
Everybody, it's up to themselves, isn't it? I don't think it would ever even cross my mind to desaturate colour, maybe, but something I'm now suddenly thinking, actually, yeah.
Well, it's only because so often, particularly in weddings, there's always the guest that turned up in the very bright outfit, which looks fantastic, of course, but it does sometimes, all you can see is the guest in the very bright outfit at the back of the shot. And I'm thinking, I'm going to dial that down a bit, because really what I want people to notice is this in the foreground. I don't want your eye to say, oh, who's that in the background with the really bright clothing?
Yeah. No, absolutely. The way that I do it is I never ever like clone things out, distracting things, whatever. I don't edit like that at all. It's not up for me to say that's right or wrong. It's just the way that I do it personally. A lot of my images are black and white, so they're clearly edited. It's not, it's about as far from the truth as you can possibly get. Black and white, isn't it?
Well, particularly when it has your very contrasty preset
exactly.
that you run. I mean, that's not even turning it into gentle black and white, is it? That's
No, I don't like those insipid grey
salad of grey, I call them.
Yeah, I don't like those. But again, it's personal choice. So I try and make my images look filmic. So my black and white certainly filmic, and my colors to a certain extent as well. But yeah, as natural as possible. I don't tend to, like I said, I don't delete bins and exit signs and all that kind of stuff. I'll do my best when I'm shooting to mitigate that. But if they're there, they're there. But yeah, it's entirely, yes, I also have seen some horrendous images where you just think, my God, how can that even have got past the naked eye? But, it's all a learning curve, isn't it? And, I have no doubt that if I look back at I often do look back at my first set of weddings and, and you think, wow. In fact, on my workshop, my wedding workshop, we spend the first kind of half hour going through pictures from my first ever wedding.
I did love that actually on the was it Bath where you did that? You did your talk, and it was my shittest wedding talk or something.
my first wedding it was, yeah. But
with no disrespect, obviously, to the clients whose wedding you shot.
No, absolutely. And at the time, I liked it, and yes. Yeah, I mean, there was a clear, the clarity slider to me was like, woo, look at this! It's like having a new button in the car, wasn't it? It was like, wow, look at that. Yeah. So yeah, but it's very subjective, isn't it? And when it comes to weddings, at least I work off the mantra that I want people to be able to pick these pictures up in 50, 60, 70, 80 years time, grandkids and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And see the picture rather than think, oh my God, what the earth was the fashion in those days in terms of, photography style. If you look at like the 80s, pictures in the 80s where they used to do those creative shots through champagne glasses.
Oh, yeah.
The bride and groom stood by the cake with the champagne glasses and things like that. And then white vignettes. Which was all the rage, but that's the equivalent of Instagram filters now, isn't it? So I try and keep it as natural as possible, but your mileage may vary.
I wonder whether one day in the not too distant future, somebody will look at those photographs where people went through that period of editing a dinosaur into the shots.
Well, yeah, and also I know I'm going to upset a load of people now.
Oh no, stand by. Hold on.
Those smoke cans.
Oh yes.
When grandkids look at those pictures, they're going to think they got married in the middle of a nuclear war. What? It's like, why on earth was grandma and granddad holding a paint can with smoke billowing out of it? Was it like, some kind of emergency going on?
I did get asked to do that once, to do some shots, and then the boys didn't bring them in the end for their wedding. But that was the closest I've ever got to the smoke can.
I know some people love it. And, like I said, I know I will upset people by saying that. And it's entirely... Is it
your because bag. Of the authenticity that you wouldn't say, darling, let's go shopping at Tesco. Have you... Remember the smoke cans? Would you just bring those out with you?
I just, it's a stylistic thing, isn't it, as well? I think that, I say to my clients, look, I want my pictures to be an authentic representation of what happened at your wedding.
Yes.
It's not a fairy tale. It's not a stage production. It's what happened. And that manifests itself throughout the editing as well. But yes, I mean, we've seen all kinds of weird and wacky things, like say the dinosaurs, the smoke cans, another one is those different vignettes and all sorts of stuff. But like I say, and also, it can come down to a marketing and a financial thing. Some people, if you're happy to do that, the smoke cans, and your clients want that, and they're willing to pay you for it, and you're willing to run the risk of setting them on fire, then go for it. But
is that what you say to dissuade people?
I've never ever. Nobody has ever asked me ever.
But what if, for example, in fact, no, I might save this. I'm gonna write this down. Cliche photographs, and we're going to discuss that as our patron-only show next Monday. Okay, I've just written that down. Little idea there. I want to continue this conversation because I've got some questions to ask you and how you, Kev, would deal with some of these moments.
Okay.
Right. Do we have a QQ on Facebook? Or no, it doesn't have to be a QQ, just a question, Kev.
Yeah, okay, I've got one from Mike Wotton, all the way from Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Kev, Neil. Just watching John Branch's review of the X100V, and he reviewed purely on its stills performance. That got me thinking, I never have and probably never will do video. If a camera was to be produced with stills only, i.e. the X100V, would it be significantly cheaper to produce? Would there be a few potential customers out there who don't need video, but want the capabilities of the camera for stills? He also tagged in Andreas at that point, who did. reply.
Did Andreas say something about marketing? Probably, didn't he?
I'll read out his reply because it makes sense.
Yes.
We've been asked this before, and people assume there would be a massive cost saving, but that's not the case. Yeah. My analogy is as follows. Andreas is the king of analogies. I use an iPad for viewing videos and web browsing. However, it can also do hundreds of other things. If I could buy an iPad that did less, would it be cheaper? No, is the answer. And the fact is, it's the reason why, if you're in a car, right, you've got a car, it's got 3 levels. You've got like a level 1, level 2, level 3, and you buy a level 1 car. You see all of the little gaps and spaces in the compartments where all of the technology that would be in level 2 and level 3 would be. The moldings are all in place. They don't not create that space in the moldings in the dashboard because you're never going to use it, because it just costs more to actually take that stuff away than it would be to put it in there. And it's the same with that with technology. It's not going to be cheaper, so it's there for that reason. For people who do want to use it, great. People don't, they won't. And I think Fujifilm kind of deal with this, as with all of the camera manufacturers, by having different choices of cameras. If you don't want an X-H2S, which is very strong functionality in terms of filming, then get an X-T2 or an X Pro 3 or something else, which can do filming but isn't quite as functionality.
Isn't made for it. No,
strong.
No.
Yeah.
You need to buy a Kia as well, because that comes with everything, doesn't it, Kev? It's fully flavoured.
I like my Kia Sportage.
Yeah.
I had 2 new tyres put on yesterday.
Could you afford it?
Just about. Only the back ones.
I'm only running on 2 tyres. Right,
bike.
I wonder if we've got time for one more question. Have we? It's not really a question, actually. This is from Mark Wardman. But I suppose it's an interesting...
Mark Wahlberg?
No, Wardman.
Oh.
No.
I'm not interested in.
No, don't be like that. Poor Mark. Listen to your recent discussion about Amazon Basics, and it reminded me of this. Oh, there's a film that he's linked to. I'll send you the link, Kev. If I just click it quickly. It's a film about peak design. It's a film about bags, basically, and the sort of difference between spending little money or spending decent money. Obviously, peak design is way more expensive, but appears far more ethical. And so the film goes on to talk about how when you spend a little bit more money, you could well be using materials that are a lot more ethical. Whereas if you buy really cheap, no, I don't think the same attention to that kind of detail goes into it. It's the great Amazon conundrum, if you like. Loving the podcast as much as ever, though. So it's not really a question, but I suppose he's making a point here, because we were talking about
my wrist,
look at the amazing prices of these Amazon Basics things, whereas they might not ethically be as good as spending the more dollars on something that is a bit more sustainable, I think.
No, quite right. Very true. But, if Mark can write in again, once the electricity companies and the gas companies are ethically supplying it, then I shall think again.
Oh, God, don't talk about power and ethics. Oh, the 2 big superpowers of power in the world, who do you think they are in terms of commercialism?
What, in terms of fuel power?
Yeah. In terms of powering the world, what are the 2 big superpowers? I thought there'd be 3, but there's only apparently 2, and this is when it comes to financially feeding the world with power. Who are those 2? What do you think?
Don't know.
Russia and America. There we go.
Your countries. Yeah. Sorry, I thought you meant companies. Yes. Yeah.
Oh no, not companies. No, there we go. Yeah. That's well, there we go. That's a whole new subject for a different podcast altogether. And that's it for this week. We do need your Facebook questions, don't we, Kev, really? For if this is going to be bi-monthly now, and I don't mean every other month, every other week, then we really do need your questions to come in through the Facebook. How do we need
more questions? Do you want to explain what people can expect on the Patreon pop-up, or whatever we're going to call it?
Oh yeah, so it's going to be a brand new show so we do our live. It's not live. We do our main show on 1 week, and then the next week you get the Patreon edition, which is it's a 5-10 minute show with a question, something that we've taken from the show. It's kind of sort of like an after party, but not. It's kind of taking a subject onto the show. So that's why I want to talk about cliche photographs, Kev, next week. So if you're with us on Patreon next week, we're going to be talking about cliche photographs and some of the things that Kev does to get out of them, perhaps. I don't know. I've got a sort of glint in my eye. That's what we're going to be doing. So there is now a FujiCast every single week. This channel, and then next week the Patreon channel, and then this channel, and then the week after the Patreon channel, and then the week after that this channel. And have you got the pattern now, Kev?
Yeah.
Good.
That's called weekly.
Well, yeah, sort of. Right. If you want to send your questions in, click at fujicast.co.uk. And Kev, how do we do it for Facebook again?
Pin thread, Facebook group, search for FujiCast in Facebook if you want to join the group. We now have, nearly 3,000 members, I think. All very nice people. Yeah. So yeah, join the group and you can pop your question there, and guaranteed to be responded to on the show, although when, I don't know.
That doesn't sound like a very good guarantee. We'll see you if you're a patron next week. Otherwise, we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.